the goal of this, session essentially is to talk to thought leaders like Nick, see how cutting edge security teams like the one in Snap or the ones in Google or Amazon essentially use open source software at scale to keep their security program, keep their security apparatus consistently cutting edge. But you have had quite a journey. I know you were personally hired at SpaceX by Elon, and you worked with a bunch of blue chip tech companies before that. What is your mental model? Having been through the journey, really, it has evolved, I'm sure, really, right? Based on starting as a 16-year-old hacker to where you are now. What is your definition of what is good and what is great? What is just compliance-driven purchase and what is security engineering-driven, security program, essentially?
Yeah. Having a chance to work with Elon and doing some consulting work, 2011, 2013 timeframe, I opened my eyes to what I call good to great security. And I think the major difference between good to great is the engineering bar and the adoption of either an in-house build culture or an open source build culture. Like we already mentioned, at its core, security is an engineering problem. So let's talk about an example. Let's say you have 2,500 engineers that need to correctly manage IAM permissions for AWS, right? And we need to do this consistently. So how do you make this easier for 2,500 engineers? Do you let them pick whichever permission they want? Do you have some set of permissions? Do you have some birthright access? Do you have some kind of system you build? How do you do that? How do you abstract away the complexity of 2,500 engineers, right? You need to build a happy path, right? And sure, there's vendor solutions that do this, but in this example, Snap has also chosen to build in-house. We built a tool in-house to do this. And we've taken a leasing philosophy where you get access for an ephemeral period of time, and that ephemeral period of time then expires. And like our app, where you send a snap, once you've read it and replayed it once, it's gone forever, ever, right? Same thing with the access. Now, the balance here is how much overhead does this create for an engineer to come in, request access, lose access, request access, lose access. We're not clobbering them every couple of hours. It's every couple of days or maybe a little bit longer. But that's the kind of thing that you need to do. We've solved for this at massive scale, not even one cloud, two clouds. And that internal system that we built, it handles both of them. And we could probably scale it to a third one if we needed to. So I think when you consume vendor services, it's kind of like being a hoarder. That's my mental model. To me, buying a bunch of vendor tools like being a hoarder. At one point, you're going to be like, what am I even doing? I'm lost in these tools that I have. I don't even know what they're for. A lot of tools are never even used. There was a study on this recently I read on the internet that I think 40% of organizations have tools that they never even log into. Right? What's the point? So you got to be a lot more intentional about this stuff, right? Because if you're being intentional in building, you know why you're building, you know why you're there, you know why the code's being written, you know why the open source is being used. When you're consuming tools left and right, and unfortunately the industry wants us to do that. I get solicited to probably 50 times a week. So anyway, I think the time for open source really is now. The security landscape is shifting to open source first. And these recessionary times when companies are being challenged and CFOs are being more scrutinizing with that Rolodex of vendors that I talked about. The time for open source is right now. The CFO doesn't care how much open source costs because it doesn't cost anything to get started. And then when you graduate and you want enterprise, it's probably going to be more affordable than a pure play commercial product.
Yeah. And that is so true for so many products. It's unclear why they were purchased, what are the matrix, what are the key goals and objectives you had. They never get deployed. Forget getting deployed at scale, they just never even get deployed, really. Point solutions, really. And I completely agree with you that open source gets, forget the vendor side of it, purely from a customer's point of view, from a user's point of view, you have some of the greatest pieces of technology out there. You can modify it, you can look at it, you can smell it, you see it fits the bill or not, and then go from there. Then, of course, oftentimes you see that there are companies, there are startups who are essentially offering support or some additional features on top of that you can always reach out to, work with them as part of your extension as part of your team, essentially, and then go from there, really, right? So do you do that as well, Nick, or it's primarily,
No, we collaborate. I'll give you an example. When we needed to build ARM64 support for Falco, what did we do? We went on the Falco Slack forums and started talking to other people who are eBPF developers. We're not eBPF developers. The person who worked on this as part of our sister team, like, he never even looked at that before. But we, again, we have a higher technical bar. We give people space, and it took some time, but he figured it out. And now we have ARM64 support. What would we have done if it was a vendor? All right, hello, Mr. Account Manager. Hi, I'm Nick. I have a problem. This thing doesn't have ARM64 support. Can you get it into the roadmap? Oh, okay, Nick. Let me go talk to the product manager. Okay. Some time passes, they come back. Oh, let me talk to the product manager's manager. Nick, we talked to the head of product. We can't build this for you. It's going to be 6 quarters. What? That's the reality that we deal with. Like that really is the reality. I'm not being dramatic. So
yeah. And I think it also depends on how enterprise grade that particular open source product is. I mean, is it just a command line tool that you're bringing in and then building a whole system around it, or it
that's exactly right. Like Defense and Falco, these are enterprise grade security tools, much like what HashiCorp brought to the market when they built Vault some 10 years ago, right? Like, it's enterprise grade, it's high quality for the enterprise, and happens to be open source. This is like the best of the world, right? Like, why aren't more people doing this? I don't get it. So
why isn't everyone doing it? Absolutely. I think everybody is going to do it soon enough.
Thanks for listening. You can hear the entire interview at deepfence.io.